Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's meeting. For those of you that I haven't met as of yet, my name is Jay Underwood Smith, and I serve as your broker concierge manager here at ORRA. We appreciate your attendance at our second Coffee and Connections for Brokers. If you were unable to attend the session from last month, please visit ORRA's YouTube page to view the recording of all things artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. ORRA's Broker Forum will be hosting their next broker breakfast on Thursday, May 18th, 2023 at 9:30 a.m., featuring two top real estate industry experts who will explore top liability trends and MLS insights. Joanna Watkins, VP of Law and Policy and General Counsel for Florida Realtors, will speak to liability trends and risk management, and Chris Lumia, Business Development Manager from Stellar MLS, will speak to leveraging the value of the MLS. So if you wish to register for this meeting, please reach out to me after this session, and I'll be more than happy to register you. And then finally, May's Coffee and Connections meeting has already been posted to the ORRA portal. Your broker concierge team has partnered with Florida Realtors Chief Economist, Dr. Brad O'Connor, to provide you with an economic update on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023 from 10 to 11, same time as our normal Coffee and Connections. We will provide you with statewide local housing market trends and the impact of broader market forces, for example, interest rates, inflation, and economic growth. So please be sure to register for the next Coffee and Connections. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you your awesome presenter for today's meeting, Mr. Craig Lewis, Director of Member Councils. Craig Lewis is a speaker, facilitator, storyteller, and pun enthusiast. Craig has over 15 years of experience in the nonprofit industry and has a knack for helping organizations to see their blind spots. Craig's passion for working with marginalized communities has led him to work with associations across the country who are on the front lines of DEI initiatives, improving lives and communities for those deemed other. When not working, Craig can be found with his dog Bucky and making everyone groan with his love for dad jokes. Craig, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jay. It's an honor to be here. Every time someone introduces me with that, I feel guilty because I never think to actually pull up a picture of my dog so that everyone can see just why I spend all my time with him. He's the love of my life. I'm so excited to be with you all this morning. We have some important work to get through and to talk about. I'm going to share my screen real quick so that everyone can see that as well. And then, Jay, if you'll just give me a thumbs up that came through, we will get into it. My name is Craig Lewis, and I am so excited to be with you this morning. We're going to talk about a lot of different subjects today, a little bit about myself. I am the Director of Commercial Services and Member Councils here at ORRA. I've worked with many different organizations helping to propel them in the DEI space and propel them forward. I typically work also with governing boards and strategic planning as well. I'm so excited to be with you. There are some of the organizations I've worked with there at the bottom of the screen. You'll see some of those are local here in Orlando, and then some of those are in other places as well. I call myself a storyteller because that is how I fell in love with helping organizations. I fell in love with helping them learn how to tell their stories. And that's something that I'm really loving doing here at ORRA, especially with the Diversity Council. The Diversity Council is a project that I'm very passionate about. I'm excited to share with you about that today. But before we get into that, it wouldn't be a good introduction for you if we didn't talk originally first, what is DEI? What is happening across organizations, across the country, across the globe, around the DEI space? And then also, it's worth noting that yesterday is the anniversary of the passing of the Fair Housing Act. So we're going to talk about fair housing and how that relates to the work that we do here as realtors as well. And then eventually we will talk about some of the amazing work being done by the Diversity Council here at ORRA as well. I'm excited to share with you some of the work that we're doing, some of the work that we have planned, and all the places that we are headed in the future. I said first, let's talk about what is DEI. And I think for brokers, that's important to note because it comes in multi-different facets for you. What does DEI have to do with the people that are in your agency, the people that are working in your firms and in your brokerages? What does that do for you for recruiting? But then also, what does that mean for the people that you're serving and that you're working with? I want to stop here and say, I can't really, because of the way my screens are set up, I can't really see the chat. So if you type a question in the chat, I'm going to let Jay, you have my permission to interrupt if you think you should answer it right then. I do have slides for discussion. And so I also want you to maybe take some notes, jot some things down, because I really want to hear from you, hear your input. It's my goal that since we all have our coffee this morning and we're so comfortable and we're ready to really get into some connection and some conversation. So before we can talk about what's happening across so many different organizations about DEI, I think the first thing we need to do is break down what those terms really are. What does DEI stand for? And then what is it as a movement? Diversity as a whole, diversity is considered, and there are not many screens that I'm going to read off to you, but some of this is very important, and I want to get the words to you in the exact manner. Diversity is the appreciation, and that's an important part, appreciation and prioritization of different backgrounds, entities, and experiences collectively and as individuals. It emphasizes the need for representation of communities that are systemically underrepresented and under-resourced. Diversity is specifically that appreciation and prioritization of those different backgrounds. That's something that we've been doing here at ORRA for a very long time. We've had a diversity committee for a very long time. And so the movement to a diversity council was a strategic decision, and we'll talk more about that later. But diversity as a whole is that appreciation. Equity, often confused with equality. Equity is the effort to provide different levels of support based on the needs of an individual group to achieve fairness in outcomes. That's the difference there between equity and equality. Equality assures that everyone starts from the same spot. Equality says we both get a 2-foot box to make us taller. Equity says you're already a foot taller than I am. So if we're all going to see at the same playing field, you need a 2-foot box. I might need a 3-foot box so that we're all getting to look at the same thing. The difference there is that equality assumes the beginning. Equity is working towards fairness on the outcome. And finally, inclusion. Inclusion is a state of belonging when people of different backgrounds, experiences, and identities are valued, integrated, and welcomed equitably as decision makers, collaborators, and colleagues. Inclusion is, that part is in purple, and it's very important, a state of belonging. Inclusion says this table is for everyone, and everyone here is valued. Everyone is an integral part at this table, and everyone gets a seat at it. That is our main decision drivers around inclusion. I want to stop here and say, before we talk about this a little bit more in depth, and I do want to say across the board, there are no dumb questions. There are no dumb thoughts. There's nothing that I want you to hold back. I would love for you to discuss here. What are you currently doing? We're going to talk more about some ideas, some options, why you should embrace this. But what are you currently using in your firms? What are you currently doing around DEI efforts, around diversity? You're welcome to talk about it as a whole or to break it down into those 3 parts, those diversity, equity, inclusion, if you have any of those as well. Jay, help me see if someone's maybe raising their hand here, but I would love to hear from you. I'm going to give you a little bit more time if you would like to speak here as well.
I don't see anyone yet.
Okay. That's okay. Hopefully we will have more discussion after this. I have another slide to discuss this a little bit further right after. So why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about DEI? I think for you as brokers, it's important to look at it different levels of this. First, Our goal as brokers would be to grow our firm, to grow our brokerage. And to do that, we know that job seekers, applicants are looking for diverse places to work. They're looking for places that align with their values. And so we know that the workforce of the future is looking for this as an important factor. Some statistics for you to consider. Organizations, so this study was done through Forbes, and it was then researched and backed again through Harvard Business Law. So these statistics, I'm happy to send some of this out as well, Jay, later, if we can, in that follow-up email following this. Statistics to consider: organizations with above average gender diversity outperform companies by 46 to 58%. 46 to 58%. So above average gender diversity, this is not even talking about areas of leadership. This is just saying that as long as we're having different people represented and those different ideas based on gender, we're outperforming 46 to 58%. Further than that, even deeper, higher representation of women in C-suite level positions. And that may not transfer. Again, this is talking about more traditionally styled organizations, but how would that transfer over to a brokerage, right? Women in C-suite level positions resulted in 30% greater returns to shareholders than C-suite organizations that had 0 women in those positions. So we know that gender diversity is important, in including women in leadership, different genders in leadership as well. But also, in the United States, there is a linear relationship between racial and ethnic diversity and better financial performance. For every 10% increase in diversity on the executive team, earnings before interest and taxes rise 0.8%. So for every 10% increase in diversity, so for every 1 out of 10 employees, we're rising almost 1% on those earnings. And I want to stop here to say, notice this, I haven't said anything about, we're talking about DEI. Jay and I actually had a conversation about this yesterday. We're not talking about DEI necessarily because it's the right thing to do, or because it's a moral decision. That may be, that's between you and your faith house. We're talking about this because we know that embracing these concepts is ultimately going to increase productivity and outcomes for your business. That's why we're bringing this to you, increasing diversity, and that is something that's important, especially when we look to the future. Average employee performance in diverse organizations is 12% higher than employees at non-diverse organizations. So for the higher the diversity in an organization, the more return of performance of every employee. And that's because we're introducing that diversity of thought. We're encouraging creative thinking from different experiences and backgrounds, and that's where that's coming from. This last statistic is the main thing I want us to maybe focus on our time for the next 4 or 5 minutes. 67% of job seekers consider diversity important when considering employment opportunities. 2/3 of job seekers consider diversity important when considering employment opportunities. So 2 out of every 3 people coming to talk to you about possibly partnering with your firm consider these initiatives important. And those numbers skew even higher when you focus on an earlier applicant. So someone maybe in Gen Z, millennial, and those other areas also moving forward. So how can we implement some of this? Again, I'm not seeing any questions, so if you're dropping those in, Jay, help me answer those in real time. So how can we look at some of this moving forward? What are some best growth practices that we can look at to grow the applicants, the people coming to work in your firm as well? So first, measure and analyze your current efforts. Measure and analyze your current efforts. Look at what you're currently doing. Are you currently using any of these initiatives? Survey your current agents. You can talk to people and see how they currently feel. See what the feeling of inclusion is around the office and see how that could possibly move. Recruiting diverse talent is a skill that is important to master. One very easy thing you can do is that anytime you're posting, whether you're looking for someone to work in the office or you're looking to partner with different agents, you can eliminate gendered terms on your applications. We know, studies have shown that if an application uses he, him pronouns, that women are half as likely to apply for that job. So if you are posting, or maybe just your application, maybe just a form to work within your brokerage just uses gendered terms, we know that through studies telling us in exit interviews, if those are gendered, women are much less likely, half as likely to follow through and fill out. It's also important, whatever you are doing, hopefully we can talk about that in a minute, whatever you are doing, make sure that you're introducing that in your discussions with applicants. So as you're discussing someone coming into your brokerage, someone partnering with you in your work, make sure you're discussing that with them, because whatever you're doing is an important part that we know job applicants and agents are looking for. To facilitate inclusive onboarding, it would be important to lead DEI initiative discussions, maybe just a sheet of different terms, different initiatives, or even just different terms around DEI, even if it's just a definition of diversity, equity, inclusion, to have that in your onboarding. Have that in your onboarding package. It would be great to have them. We're going to talk about Fairhaven later. It would be great to have onboarding go through Fairhaven. We're also going to talk about some opportunities here at ORRA. So it would be great to have that in your onboarding as well. So also, it would be important to lean on learning and development. So if your brokerage is big enough, if your firm is big enough, it would be great to model the organization website of different C-suites or organizations to have an ERG, an employee research group. You could call it something different, but a specific council or task or diversity group working towards these initiatives within your firm would help. And that would also be something then looked for by those incoming applicants. Also, I want to encourage you to encourage your agents to get involved with other organizations throughout the region. Not just ORRA. We believe we're doing great things here at ORRA, but we also believe that other organizations are doing great things, and that's why we partner with them. We're going to talk a little bit later about NAREP, ORRA, the LGBT Real Estate Alliance. I would encourage you to encourage your agents to get involved. Not only are they growing their network, not only are they growing the people that they are able to do business with, but they are increasing the communities that they are exposed and a part of, and therefore increasing the diversity, equity, and inclusion that they are around. They're increasing that so much. So use DEI to boost retention. So make sure that you're communicating what you're doing with your agents and implementing these. We know, again, through surveys, people are leaving jobs that they don't align with. They're leaving organizations that they don't align with. So implementing DEI, again, not my job to tell you if it's moral or if it's the right thing to do, but we do know that implementing these helps with retention of agents and employees. If you want to be sure that you are then implementing things that they're passionate about, I would encourage you to survey the people in your office and see, and maybe that's something more official and anonymous, or maybe that's something sent in an email asking people just to come and let you know what they're involved in or what they're interested in being involved in. But it would be a wonderful retention tactic to keep those people engaged and included in your workspace. Something that I think is important that we haven't quite talked about yet is the other side of this, which is the clients that you serve. I can see a lot of you have your cameras on. If you do, show of hands, how many of you use a survey once a client has gone through the process and maybe bought a house, they've closed, they've gone through that process? How many of you send out a survey? How many of you survey them and ask them about their experience? Ask them if they'd be interested and willing to use you again. Show of hands, anyone sending out a survey like that at all? I see a few hands, I think. That would be a great place to ask those questions. Ask your clients as well if there are any shortcomings. One of the best things that we are seeing in organizations is organizations that are willing to admit their shortcomings and then ask for advice on how to grow and develop those blind spots in those areas. Talk to those clients and see where maybe they felt that they could be better served. You're already talking to a client you've already closed a deal with. So you're just asking them, how could I have made this better? And maybe they would tell you, I was misgendered. And that's something you didn't even realize. But had you known that that's something you needed to consider, that would have been a wonderful thing. And finally, use analytics to measure your efforts. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. That's something that my dad taught me when we were doing woodworking. If you can't measure it, you're never going to get it right. Make sure that you're using analytics. You're surveying your staff, your agents, the people in your firm, whether those are employees or contractors. You're surveying those, seeing what they're passionate about, seeing the level of inclusion that they feel, but also on the other side, those people that you're working with. I encourage you to survey those as well. And I will say another analytical way to see is look at the people that you do business with as well. Look at the people that you're using that are in the other aspects of our industry. Are those people also people from different communities, different thoughts, different views than you? We get in a silo often. So make sure that those other people that you're working with are people that are also people that are increasing the diversity that you are practicing in your firm. So moving on real quick, I want to go back to that first question. Is anyone willing to share now that we've given out some ideas, now that we've discussed this a bit, is anyone willing to share any efforts that you're currently using in your firm? Maybe you're sending out those surveys. Is there anything that you're currently doing that someone would share? I am going to give us a good 30 seconds here to wait and see if anybody wants to raise their hand. If anyone has anything, I know some of you do. You may be shy to speak because I know some of you here on this call. But if you have something, I'd love for you to share here now as well. Jay, I'm going to let you unmute them, or however that works.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourselves at any time.
Yeah, I see a hand up. Go for it.
Thank you, Craig, for the great information for discussion. In my office, I do create an environment for everyone to be welcome and have an opportunity. What I find is I am a trainer. I am an NAR certified trainer and Florida Realtors trainer. So I love to learn, and I love to try to help my agents in the process. But people get disconnected when they are taught, you need to learn, you need to train yourself. I find many agents barely take the minimum training to keep their license alive. So how we do work about that, regardless of ethnic, regardless of diversity, that's something I find very hard to work with.
Yeah, so let me restate your question to make sure I'm understanding it. So your question is, it's difficult to encourage agents to follow through with that education. And if anyone on the call has any feedback, thank you. Good. Just wanted to make sure. If anyone on the call has any feedback to that, I'd love to hear that as well. And I think one of the things, and with you being a trainer, you're already doing this, but I think it's important to point out that you are already modeling the behavior that you hope to see. The early part of my nonprofit career, I was actually an educator. I worked in fundraising, but I was also an educator for a nonprofit school. And one of the things that I learned as a teacher was that you always highlight the behavior that you want to see instead of highlighting the behavior that you want to eliminate. And so I would encourage you, if someone is following through with that, and create incentives for those people that are already doing the work. They're already hitting those things, because that's going to help to highlight the model instead of creating the atmosphere of, we have to get this done, this is important. Highlight that information. We already know that the this is what y'all gonna learn about me. The very practical side of it is, if they don't do their education, their license is not gonna be renewed. They're not gonna be able to keep their work, right? So we already know that. And if that's not enough of a driver, then how else are we gonna continue to do that? And I think it's important to model those things as well. Reese, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, Craig, back to what you're talking about. What are we doing? I don't think we're doing anything different, because, you know, that old song, I was country for country was cool. Yeah. You know, I mean, this is just something that over the years, you've always, inclusion, anybody and everybody, and so as far as doing anything different, I don't think we're doing anything different other than like Vilma says, just keeping educated and taking a look at stuff. Yeah. But that's the thing. We just pass off information to our associates and tell them what training's coming up, what education. Nothing different than DEI or at home with diversity or anything like that. Just saying, hey, we've got some excellent stuff coming up. This is something you might want to look at. So it's like business as usual, just with a little bit of enhancements every now and then.
Absolutely. And I want to celebrate you, Reese. I know that you have gone through all of these things, and it goes back to modeling that behavior as well. You are a member of the Diversity Council. You are working in leadership roles in these different initiatives here at ORRA. And so you're already modeling that behavior. And that's absolutely something that we know in organizations from top-down leadership. Modeling that behavior is going to help your agents to create those habits as well. And so I would encourage you to keep doing that, right? Keep showing up, keep being in those conversations, keep inserting yourself in ways that it's going to educate you and help you lead. And people will see that. And I do believe that will move down as well. Jay, was there anyone else?
I don't see anyone else in the chat, nor do I see any other hands raised.
Yeah, okay. Friends, we have plenty of time for discussion throughout. I want to go ahead and move on to our next little bit. But again, feel free to drop a message in the chat or jot those down, and then we'll save those for the next discussion section. So what is fair housing? Yesterday was the 55th anniversary of the signing of the Fair Housing Act. And it's made some progress throughout the years. Things have been added to it, but it's important to note that this was a direct correlation with the civil rights movement that came out specifically to prohibit discrimination against groups of people based on those things that we were just talking about. Fair housing is something that we know that we need to abide by, correct? Right? It is a law that we know we are legally having to abide by, but also it's something as realtors and people in this industry, we can proudly say that we participate in fair housing. And so I do want to have this conversation real quick about what we have to do, but I also want to talk about what we get to do at the same time. And I want us to have those two conversations at the same time, because I think that attitude shift is important. And maybe, Vilma, this will go back to what your question was as well. And you let me know if maybe it helps to evolve that. So we know that the Fair Housing Act protects people from discrimination when they are renting or buying a home, getting a mortgage, seeking housing assistance, or engaging in other housing-related activities. That's it in a nutshell. I looked it up. It is 33 pages, but this small sentence is the best thing to help boil that back down. We could have gone through all 33, but this is it. If you're doing something in the housing industry, discriminating against people based on these protected classes is against the law. What are those protections? Race, color, national origin, religion, sex, that includes gender identity and sexual orientation. And that is new. That was added with the passing of the Marriage Equality Act. Familial status and disability. All of these are also included in that Fair Housing Act. So it's important to say, I don't believe or I know I or none of my agents would say, I'm not going to rent to you. I'm not going to sell to you because of the color of your skin. We know that that's something that we would not do. At least I'm going to go ahead and say, everyone on this call, we're there. I think it's important to note that not everyone is there. But that's a basic understanding that I think we can get to. But there's some other things that perhaps are behaviors that we don't even realize are happening. For one, steering. Steering is something that can happen even with the best of intentions. And Reese, I'm sure you teach this in some of the courses, so feel free to talk about this in a second. Steering is something that even with the best of intentions, you can't do it. I have taken Fair Housing 3 times. I think it's important for me to keep going through, Fair Haven 3 times. I continue going through it. And the first time, I will just be honest with you, I failed. I got a question about having an LGBT couple. And then specifically, it told me they were looking on a street where they would not be included. And there was a church that that was preaching against them and all of these things about how they wouldn't want to live there. They would not enjoy it. So of course, I selected the answer that said, tell them about this so that they don't want to live there. They don't know, they're moving from out of state. But that's steering. Even with the best of intentions, that is steering. And that's still something that we have to avoid because that is a protected class. So even with good intentions, we're not doing that. In all of these, I do kind of want you to see all of these could happen with good intention, but there's still something to avoid. Whether with any conversation you bring on this call about these, I would love to say, we're just going to say that you had good intentions when this happened, because I would love to hear examples of maybe not you, but someone you heard of these behaviors or these situations have happened. But we never want to refuse to rent or sell based on any of those, refuse to negotiate for housing. And that's something that I've actually seen people where a realtor that I know before I started working here, so they're not an ORRA member. This is in a different place, and that's not a lie. I'm not saying that just to save ORRA's face. They are really not an ORRA member. They went back to a seller and said, hey, a buyer and said, hey, they're not going to negotiate on this price. I can't give it to them. And the buyer specifically said, well, we are a different skin tone than you. You must be doing that because of our race. And that went through, and they had to go through all the different litigation and the things that happened. The person that I know says that it was just because they also knew the seller, and they knew the seller wasn't going to negotiate, so they didn't even try. But you got to do it, right? You got to send those offers in no matter what, especially when we're dealing with these terms. So you can't set different terms, conditions, or privileges for sale or rental of a dwelling. One of the examples that I read in doing some research around fair housing said it was an apartment community, and they said that their picnic tables were only for adults. So we can't, if we have a community that's for everyone, and maybe we have some property managers on this call or people that have that as part of their portfolio, we can't have parts of our community unless maybe it's the pool that it's there based on someone's renting, or it's a safety thing. You can't say this part of our community is just for adults, no kids involved. When I was in college, a private landlord refused to rent to me because I was a college student, not based on my income, but just because of my age. I didn't know then that I could have had something done about this, or I could have pursued that further. I just said, oh, well, they don't want. Also, if you don't want to rent to college students, why are you renting houses around a college? But that's a different story. But they wouldn't rent to college students. That's an age discrimination. You can't do that. Provide a person different housing services or facilities. You cannot provide those services differently to different groups of people. Falsely deny that housing is available for inspection, sale, or rental. So I do want to stop here. I didn't build a slide that asks for your discussion, but I do want to stop here and say, are there any very minute details that you've come across? Any examples, without getting into an argument around whether it's right or wrong, anything that you've come across you'd want to share with the group, anything you've seen? This is Fair Housing Month, and so this is something I definitely want us to spend a good amount of time talking about. If you have some, again, Jay, I'm going to let you help me see if anyone has any discussion.
Diana, I see your hand raised. Feel free to unmute yourself. Or just.
I just have a question. It's more along the lines of seeing listings, and then on them they say no Section 8 or not willing to accept Section 8. I don't know if that is discrimination, but it kind of seems like it, especially in my area. So I just kind of wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is a great time for me to also point out, remember, as part of your membership, you have access to that legal helpline through Florida Realtors. So you do have access to ask these questions specifically to Florida Realtors. I'm going to tell you, Diana, I don't have a definite answer for you. I do know that landlords have to enroll in that program. So if they haven't enrolled in that program, it's going to make it hard for them to take Section 8 vouchers. But that would be a great question for them. Section 8 is also something that we're talking with our Property Management Council coming up in June. So if that's something that you're interested in your property management portfolio, I would encourage you to attend that event as well. Look for the information to come out very soon. Arlene, I think your hand's up there.
Let me see here.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I do property management, and one of the things that I'm running into are owners who do not want dogs or cats in their house. And that kind of makes it difficult because there's so many renters nowadays who have their pets, and a lot of them are emotional support. So, you know, how do you handle that? And then for the lady who was talking about Section 8, I mean, I accept Section 8. I think it's really good. There are some owners who are totally against it. Not many of them, but some of them. So how do you deal with that? With those two, especially the pets?
Yeah. Again, before I answer anything, I want to remind you that you have access to that legal helpline through FR. Reese, I saw your hand go up. I will say first, pets as a whole, not a protected class. So I love my dog. He is like my child, but he is not a child. And so he's not a protected class. But and then past that, as you're working with emotional support animals, Reese, maybe this is what you were about to speak about. Yeah, I'll let you go ahead and introduce.
Yeah, Arlene, what I would do is, because you said two, and Craig kind of mentioned two things. You got emotional support animals and service animals, right?
Yes, correct.
So and pets. So the thing is like Craig said, it is a touchy situation, but I would, you know, if it's for you or your agents or whatever, I would get on either Florida Realtors or whatever and find out when we've got some classes coming up. I mean, but keep in mind, emotional support and service animals are two different things, you know, but there's a lot of great classes out there. And then again, this is a whole can of worms, and we're talking about this. And Craig, we could just take over your rest of your day on this subject itself. But the thing about it is we need to, just like Vilma said earlier, we need to get educated, and our agents need to get educated, because you've got service animals, you've got national or federal, you've got Florida, you know, so that's one thing. And I know ORRA, we bring classes all the time on this. So that's something to do. Now, the Section 8 thing that we talked about earlier, I make sure that when I talk about, even if you don't, you know, do Section 8, it behooves us to know what other brokerages, like for instance, Arlene, I know you handle it now, you know, so somebody calls in, I don't want nobody to think that I'm discriminating if I don't do it. So I say, we don't do it. However, I know that company so-and-so does it, company so-and-so, you know, has stuff. And to me, that kind of just, it don't fully get rid of the risk, but it kind of portrays that, okay, he's not discriminating.
You're right, Reese, about all of what you said. And one way, for the lady who was talking about Section 8, I like Section 8 because I know that on the 1st of every month, I get their money and their portion. And the tenants know that if they do not pay their portion, Section 8 will kick them off the program. So I have no problem, and I love Section 8 for that reason. But one thing you may want to talk to your owners who do not want to accept Section 8 is to say, well, you know, allow you to pay you to do an inspection maybe every 3 months or every 6 months, just to see how they keep the place. Not all of the Section 8 people damage the property. A lot of them are they're good tenants. You know, they're good tenants. But then, Reese, you brought up something about the pets. And maybe, Jay, if you have time to look into it, maybe to get us a speaker who can you know, help us out with that.
I have an additional comment.
I have one comment too, after he's done.
Okay. I'm sorry, Eugene, I heard you say after he's done. So whoever said that first, we'll let you.
Yvonne said it.
Yvonne, yes.
There we are.
Thank you very much. I've been dealing with tenants now for over 25 years plus. I love Section 8, but unfortunately, owners needs to be protected as well for their properties. There's a lot of rules associated with Section 8 that you have to follow in reference to maintaining your property. A person could come in and do independent testing, and if there's lead in the wall, all of a sudden the owner is out of a lot of problems, you know, to get that rectified. I mean, like I said, I love Section 8. It's nice to know the money is there, but there's also a lot of rules and guidelines. In addition to that, one of the comments was made in reference to pets. Florida statute have a number of sections in there, and it's very easy to search on them on pets, right? As the gentleman indicated, there's two emotional support and also lifeline support for the pets. And there's certain rules and guidelines that we have included directly in our lease in reference to those particular things that people want to apply their pets for and say, oh, I want to put a pet in the home. I want to rent and I have 2 pets. Well, you know what? If you do, explain to the owners also too, by the statutes that's in Florida, we can include that in our lease and agreement and indicate that there's additional fines and stuff that has to be paid, not additional fines, additional fees if you do want to have an emotional support animals there. In addition to that, they have to submit 5 different types of certification and documentation indicating that the pet is an emotional support animal. And that would be on the basis that if they don't have that and they just have a pet, because everybody is saying their pet is an emotional support. Unfortunately, you know, the statutes does not indicate that that you do not have to provide that information to the landlord or the property management. So the suggestion would be is make sure that you get the document signed and the required documents. I think it's 4 required documents, and it's already in the Florida statute, and explain to your tenant, explain to the landlord, yes, you can rent, but to emotional support, but let's get these classification first and present it to him and see what he says then. Thank you.
Javon, one sec. I know that Mr. Witherspoon wants to say something, but let me just jump in here based on what Javon is saying. It's gotten to the point, you're right about what you said, but it's gotten to the point now where there are a lot of owners. Personally, I don't want to rent any of my houses with dogs in it because I've done it in the past and they've destroyed it. I think that owners have the right to say, no, I don't want any animals in my house. But the people who are renting nowadays, I had one lady said to me the other day, she wanted to rent a house. And she said to me, I said to her, well, the owner doesn't want any animals in there. And she's like, well, my husband is an attorney. So right away, I took that as a threat. So where does it come in for the owners? You know what I mean? If they say they don't want any pets, why can't it be respected?
I concur.
I do take the pet fee, and you're right. A lot of people come on and they say, well, my pet is an emotional support animal. One lady told me her dog was emotional support. I said, provide me with the certification. When she gave me the certification, it was a letter from a gynecologist. Gynecologists don't deal with emotional stuff. Is what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand you fully.
They don't do that.
Yes, but you know, the thought that I was coming across also too, right? I mean, we want to educate our landlords too as well, and they have the right. Yes, they do have the right to say no, they don't want this, but also let them know what their options are, and then sometimes I did that one time to the homeowner, and he did agree to rent. But however, the puppy was literally maybe 12 inches long by maybe 8 inches high, and you can have restrictions also too as well. Say no pit bulls. as well. Just a suggestion,
True.
my opinion.
Yeah, you have the restrictions, and sometimes the tenants sneak them into the property. It's a mess.
Well, that's immediate termination of my leases. I literally put that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's in the lease, in my lease too.
Yeah.
I think that, Reese, you're exactly right. This is absolutely something that, and Arlene, maybe it was even your idea. This is something that, Jay, we can look into bringing some education around, and maybe there's someone from FR that would be willing to come even and speak specifically on this. And so we'll look into that as well. I'm sure that the Diversity Council would love to talk to help you have an event around Section 8 housing as well. I will tell you real quick back on that, and then Eugene, I'm coming to you. I myself, to learn, am going through the landlord orientation. I'm not a landlord, but I am going through the landlord orientation for the Section 8 housing in the city of Orlando in June. That's the next open orientation. And so I think it's good that we're educating ourselves on what this looks like. If anyone wants information on that, I'm happy to send that to you as well. They've reached out to us because they want to partner with us. Right now, there is a landlord, Allie Taylor is here, and she actually forwarded this to me. Right now, there's a landlord incentive. I forget the numbers. I want to say it's $500-600 of an incentive for landlords to enroll in the HOA program. And so, I mean, I'm sorry, the Section 8 program. So that would be something that they could be interested in as well. And it's something that serves an aspect of our community that absolutely needs to be served. And we need to make sure that we are doing that as well. Eugene, what was your thought, comment, question?
Yeah, my thought, and Arlene almost said it. Long story short, I'm the owner, or I personally own rental properties, and I personally have a no pets policy because pets destroy your property. Now, I believe that if it's up to 4 units, you don't necessarily have to go by those rules where you got more than 4 more units. I think the more units you have, that you reach a point where beyond a certain number of units, then you have to make sure that you allow for the emotional support pet and everything else. But if your complex or your house, your rental is less than 5 units, I believe you can have a no pets policy, period.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I do know that the rules are different though based on the unit size.
Yes. Yes.
I do know that tenant rights, different tenant laws here in Florida have to do with larger complexes versus smaller and things like that.
Yes.
Because a lot of that came up last fall during the hurricane as well, and where landlord responsibility fell in those things based on the unit size and number of units as well. So that's a great point. And Jay, I think we're seeing this is absolutely some education. Friends, I want to keep going. I have some hot, amazing information for you, so I want to keep going, but if there's more time at the end, let's circle back to this if you still have questions or comments. So I want to share with you a couple of resources. We've talked about Vilma, Reese. I think a great point that you discussed was education. Educating yourself is something that I believe is what's going to help trickle down that leadership, but also educating your people in your office, your agencies as well. And so I want to make sure that we're sharing information. Did you know that NAR Fair Housing has a chapter in the Real Estate Brokerage Essentials? Did you know that this Brokerage Essentials is for purchase in the Realtor store? I'm going to keep going. Did you know that chapter 6 specifically over fair housing, I've got it here, I printed it off, is free for the month of April? So you can download just the chapter around fair housing. I just downloaded it yesterday, so the answer to some of your questions might be in here. But in here, there are 15 different case summaries that are going to help go through some of the things we talked about: discriminating, steering, refusing to sell, all of that. There are 2 different training modules with different exercises in each one. So for this month of April, that's something that Jay's going to help email out after this call, so you can go through and download this, work through it in your own time, share that if you can as well. Also, did you know NAR has a Fair Housing Act free video that helps outline some of these things as well? That video is free. We're going to send the link to you as well. It is about an hour long, but there's so much information in there. So when you have some time, that'd be a great thing to look at as well. And then working through your agents and the people in your firm, Fair Haven, I just told you I've taken it 3 times and I failed it twice because I had good intentions of trying to help people, trying to steer, and I wasn't even aware that that's what I was doing. So I encourage you, and Reese, stop laughing at me. I encourage you and everyone else that is in your office to go through this program and take Fair Haven. Fair Haven is something that we're pushing as part of the Fair Housing Initiative of the Diversity Council. So we're going to talk about it a little bit deeper as well, but I encourage you to send that out. They have to log in. Everyone has to log into their NAR account, but it is free. There is no charge for Fair Haven. There's no reason that we can't do it. It takes, I would say, about allocate 2 hours. If you're just a genius and you're not like me, you can get it done in 1 hour. But allocate some time. Reese gets it done in 30 minutes. He's a pro. He's good to go.
Craig, I just want to go ahead and jump on your train there and say, if you haven't done Fair Haven, do it. You will want your agents to do it, because I'm telling you, even though you think you know stuff, it's going to throw you sideways. Exactly what Craig did, because I had a similar thing in my Fair Haven. And I just knew with all my years of real estate, I had this one down. Well, guess what? I didn't. So it opens your eyes up on a lot of things. I just wanted to reiterate that, Craig.
Well, I want to see show of hands. How many of you have taken Fair Haven? Let's check that. How many people have taken it? I see a couple hands, but not a whole lot, friends. So this is Samia. I see yours. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Feel free to correct me if I'm not. But
got it.
Oh, good. There is some really good information in there. And not only is it going to help you better serve your clients, right? Bottom line, it's going to help you better serve the people that come to you. It's also going to help you make sure that you're staying in alignment with the Fair Housing Act and staying in alignment with those laws that we're to abide by. I did want to share with you, there's a full Fair Housing Month toolkit. How many of you are active on your social? You're active on posting and looking for clients and trying to get that social media reach. And we're all looking at SEOs and we're pushing through all of that, right? There's collateral already created for you. It's ready for you to put your own personal branding on top of it, created through NAR. Yesterday was the anniversary, but you still have the rest of Fair Housing Month to put some of that on your personal social media, in your emails, and then you're showing to the world and to your clients that this is something you're committed to. That's the other side of fair housing. And I want to share this before we go into the little bit of discussion that you're sharing, because I want to know, how are you already celebrating fair housing? A commitment to fair housing as realtors means, yes, we're committing to abide by the law. But it also means that we are committed to being able and capable professionals to serve everyone in our community. So it's not only that commitment to following the law, it's also that commitment to being able to offer professional service to anyone that walks in our doors, anyone that comments on our social media posts, anyone that fills out one of our information forms. We are setting ourselves up to be able to serve them with that professionalism. If you don't have your C2EX, that's a great place to look for that professionalism as well. But we are setting ourselves up. Real quick discussion here. And I think we're getting close to the end of time. So I want to keep this short because I'm dying to tell you about the Diversity Council. But what are you currently doing? What are you currently doing in fair housing? Are you celebrating this? Show of hands, has anyone pushed this out on their social media yet? Did you know that collateral was there? Oh my gosh, I see 0 hands. Jade, I see a singular hand. Jason, you don't count. I see a singular hand. Oh man, friends, Jay's going to share this with you as well in that email. You're going to get that link. Catherine's hand is up. Catherine, if you had a question or comment, go ahead and tell us. If you were just telling us you're sharing it, I celebrate that with you, whichever way it was. Feel free to unmute if you wanted to share with us though. Okay. Friends, we got some celebrating to do. This is a good thing because we also know that if we're not discriminating against, that means that we are also offering housing to everyone in our communities. Bottom line, more customers, but also we know that we're helping that community as well. So how do we work on this at ORRA? The Diversity Council used to be, it started as a committee. It was a group of dedicated individuals that worked within ORRA on a committee. That committee was appointed. What we wanted to do was take that, and this started as a brainchild from President Lisa Hill and CEO Cliff Long. What we wanted to do was, instead of limiting the number of people that participated, we wanted to create a council that models the same format as the other specializations that we have here at ORRA. Diversity. Diversity is a council now, but commercial, property, YPN, global. We wanted to mimic that format so that we're able to create a network that's creating change both in our association and throughout our community. This council started with a concept. I want to talk real quick about how it started. We're going to talk about who we are, what's the makeup of the committee and the council, the work that we're doing, and then how you can join. The concept, it started with that idea of President Lisa Hill and CEO Cliff Long, which came out of our strategic plan. Last fall, the current board of directors sat down and had their strategic planning. And out of it, they created these 4 core values. How many of you have seen this before? Show of hands. I can see most of you. If you are on the board or were on the board that created them, Reese, it doesn't quite count that you've seen them because you helped create them. But this is here. It's innovation, selfless service, professionalism. We're calling it PI. I don't think Amanda loves it when we call it PI, but PI, professionalism, integrity, and excellence. And then DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That board of directors sat in that room and said, out of everything that we're focusing on, we believe that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is something that we need to create as one of our 4 core values. As we discussed earlier, that helps to mimic what's happening in corporations and the C-suite organizations across the country as well. And so focusing on that one initiative, they created the Diversity Council. That Diversity Council, last fall, we sat in community with these affiliate organizations and we said, who are we? What is our goal? And what are we trying to create? And ultimately, we were working. Abdul, I see your hand up. I think you have a question I'm going to get to in just a second. We ultimately said, we want to bring these community leaders back to the table. We want to reach out to these affiliate organizations and give them a seat back at the table. And so what we've done is these organizations on your screen, ORRA, but then NAREB, NAREP, ORRA, and the LGBT Real Estate Alliance, each one of those 5 affiliate organizations through NAR and ORRA, each one of them have 2 seats on the committee that steers the Diversity Council. So they're electing 2 of their current officers to sit on the committee here at ORRA. What I want to pause to say is, and there was some debate around this at the beginning, these are still ORRA members. These are not community members that are sitting on a committee at ORRA. So these are people that sit on those organizations' boards that are also ORRA members. So these are still ORRA members creating policy around DEI for us as well. But we invited these traditionally marginalized communities back to the table. And through that, we have our leadership, which will be still picked just like our other councils every year. Our leadership, Jason Marquez, our 2023 chair, Rocky Sanchez, our vice chair. Jason is here on this call. I'm going to let him speak. Before he speaks, I want to say we are blessed to have him as the chair. He's been in leadership positions through NAR, FR, through multiple associations. He brings wealth of information and knowledge to this role. And so, Jason, if there are any thoughts here you want to share, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. You have the floor.
Well, thank you all for attending this informative meeting. Craig, are you going to talk about the diversity pledge?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll let Craig talk about that. After that, I encourage every member on this call to sign the diversity pledge. I encourage if you have agents in your offices, I encourage everyone to sign the Orlando Regional Realtor Association diversity pledge. Diversity is good business. The more we can reach out to those communities that are underserved, the better we are, the more money that we can make. The more houses we can rent, the more houses we can sell, the more shopping centers that get filled, the better the communities are, and we raise the standard of living and we raise the quality of life for all Central Floridians. So I encourage you to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. I encourage you to get involved in DEI. I encourage you to come to our Diversity Council events that we're going to have throughout the rest of the year. And I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Jason, thank you so much. We are blessed to work with you, and I am grateful that I get to do that with this council. We're going to keep going quickly. I see that we're running close on time, Jay, so I'm going to talk very fast, friends. The mission of the council is to advance ORRA's commitment to promote the value of differences. We took that mission directly out of that strategic plan, advancing promoting the value of differences. The vision is that in collaboration with those partner organizations we just talked about, those 5, we're adding value to our members, we're influencing our communities, and we are innovating a future that is more equitable for all. If you notice on the ORRA logo, currently we have add value, innovate, and influence, and that's exactly where we pulled this vision from, that greater ORRA vision. Our values our purpose here is to serve as ambassadors of ORRA's inclusiveness initiative by creating an internal culture of diversity and inclusion that impacts our community. We're looking for that environment among realtors to embrace differences while accomplishing common goals and promoting accountability, cultural differences, and training. One of the main things that we decided was that education is going to be a focus of this committee. And we're going to talk about what we're doing through fair housing. I want to stop here to say, have you joined? Show of hands, how many of you have joined the Diversity Council? You would have filled out a form much like this. If you have not joined, great news. Jay's going to send that out for you. Jay's going to send that out so that you can join the Diversity Council. That council, I just sent it. If you haven't joined, you didn't get the email yesterday in celebration of Fair Housing Month from me and everything that we're doing. Don't worry, I'm going to share it with you now real quick. But I wanted to let you know a little bit of information. The council did launch officially February 1st. We had our first event there at the Regional History Museum. We had political and community members there. The top picture there, you'd see Jason Rocky there. That is our current council from all of our different members there with Cliff. And it was a wonderful event. We had over 200 people register and attend this event. It was a big kickoff. I want to say that as of today, registration opened, or council membership opened January 1st. As of today, we're at 123 members. We are on track to be the fastest, well, we are currently the fastest growing council ORRA has ever had. And we are on track to be the largest council ORRA has ever had as well by the end of this year. We have that event at the Regional History Center because we wanted to bring these opportunities into our community. At the History Center, they have an exhibit that's celebrating African-American culture here in Central Florida. So as part of our event, there was a scavenger hunt for information to travel through this exhibit and find information looking at the history here in Central Florida, looking at things like redlining, looking at things like community development that have happened here in Central Florida that directly influence our industry as well. That's part of the work that we're doing. We're looking to add value and influence and innovate. One of the things, Jason could speak about this quickly but one of the things we're doing is we're partnering with minority-owned businesses whenever we're creating these events even. We also ask our members to align themselves with ORRA by taking the DEI pledge. When you take that pledge, you get a whole slew of that same collateral that allows you to share with your community, your clients, the people that you're working with, letting them know that you've committed yourself to following these principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not going to read this out loud to you, but these are the 4 tenets of our pledge. They include partnering through the Diversity Council, educating yourself through the Fair Haven and the things that we've talked about, partnering with those organizations, having conversations with NAREP, NAREP, and those others, and then pledging to support and serve these efforts in your community. That's going to increase equity for all. So as of yesterday, there are 81 signees. Hopefully after this call, we can get closer to 100, but there are 81 signees to this DEI pledge. 81 people are already out having this commitment, but also using this as a marketing tool, letting their clients know that they've committed to opportunities like fair housing, committed to DEI initiatives and improving the way that they're working and doing business. I encourage you to use fair housing to both recommit and engage with your profession and here at ORRA, the things that the Diversity Council is doing with fair housing. First, we're encouraging people to recommit. Recommit to those ideas behind fair housing. Recommit to being able to be a professional that's capable and able of serving everyone in your community. So we encourage you to take that pledge, share that through your social media and through your avenues. Take Fairhaven. Also share that through those avenues. Again, letting people know that you've taken the time to recommit and educate yourself, and then being able to better serve your community and those that you're working with. Also, we want you to engage with us. A big portion of our expo this year, you already know there's the broker contest that's happening. And Jay, maybe you can put that in the email as well, but there's the broker contest happening. There's continuing education. On day 2, we're having a full DEI discussion and roundtable. There'll be an hour-long roundtable discussion around different topics where the subject of DEI intersects with a specific specialization of real estate. So a DEI issue that specifically intersects with commercial real estate, DEI issue that specifically intersects with property management, specifically with fair housing, but then also where DEI issues work with leadership, association management, and how DEI issues are incentives are happening in your brokerages and within your firms. All of these roundtables, you're going to sit at 8-minute tables and be able to move. You'll have an opportunity to learn about so many different aspects of this, and also engage with people in the association within your community. So I encourage you to register. Remember, this year you can register for both days or for single day tickets. So if you need to register for day 2, that's also going to get you a ticket, which they're almost sold out, a ticket to the awards luncheon, because it's the same day. So you'll come for this, and then you can stay for the awards luncheon, which is sure to be phenomenal. I believe that this year there's going to be like 750 seats. It's going to be an amazing time, and you get to wear something that's Mardi Gras themed, but that's beside the point. You will definitely come out of there with some information. And then I'm going to offer you the opportunity to develop. We just talked, Vilma and Reese, we talked about the education. Here's 3 different education opportunities for you as part of our fair housing program. We're starting with At Home with Diversity. Show of hands real quick. Who has At Home with Diversity certification? I see 3. Hopefully some of you, 4. Some of you just have your camera off, but you have it. 5. There's Vilma. Yeah. So if you have that At Home with Diversity training, you know how important that is. You know what an asset that is. Make sure that you're having it. Make sure that you're sharing it with your agents. Be the change. Fair housing course. Maybe you don't. Oh, I saw some more hands go up. I knew you did, Abdul. Maybe you don't want to watch the video from NAR. Maybe you don't want to download this free chapter 6 from the Brokerage Essentials. That's okay. I'm not judging you. But here is a virtual Be the Change Fair Housing course. It's a 2 hours. How many of us still need some CEs? Maybe 2 CE credits there as well. And then finally, we're partnering with the LGBT Real Estate Alliance on a national level to offer the very first Ally certified training in the state of Florida. This training specifically works with communities that are working with the LGBTQ plus community. So if you are an ally, this is a certified ally saying, I have taken the time to educate myself on working with this community. That's going to come up on June 23rd. All of this registration will be sent out through the email. If it's not, registration isn't open yet. I know we're waiting for the Alliance to get us one more bit of information about who the instructor is going to be, but that's going to be here at ORRA. It's going to be a wonderful time. And if nothing else, let me tell you, there's going to be food. So you're going to want to come and you're going to want to eat. That's going to be on June 23rd as well. You have 3 different opportunities coming up in the next 3 months. I'm going to offer time for any questions. Jay, I'm going to let you cut this off whenever you want to call this an end. I can see that we've run over just a little bit. Thank you all so much for your time. As you can tell, this is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited to have gotten to share this with you today. My contact information, krevl@orlandorealtors.org. If you have any follow-up questions, if you ever want to discuss this, any of these, everything that I talked about today, DEI, Fair Housing, the Diversity Council, I could have done a full hour on all 3 of them, but we're not asking you to drink coffee for 3 hours with me. So if you want follow-up on any of this information, there's my information. But I'm going to take this back to the questions. If anyone has any, Jay, maybe just a minute or 2, and then I'm going to let you have it back, okay?
Perfect. Just before we get into any questions for those that wish to disconnect, I thank you all for coming. And thank you, Craig, for your awesome presentation today. So again, the next coffee and conversation will be May 24th, same time from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with Dr. Brad O'Connor from Florida Realtors. He will be discussing economic updates on a state level and local level, so Central Florida. And again, this information will be emailed to you, all of the fair housing materials and the meeting survey for today. And I appreciate your input on this new initiative. So thank you all for coming, and I'll turn it over to Craig for questions.